special partnership, they're calling it the India-UK Financial Partnership, aimed at doing different things, deepening the bond market, getting equities on track, looking at the pension space, also widening the insurance reach. For all of that, we're joined by two very, very special guests, Sir Gerry Grimstone and, of course, Mr. Uday Kotak. Thanks, both of you, for being with us. It's just been a couple of months ever since this partnership was launched with much fanfare. UK, India, they've got two of the tallest leaders of India Inc. And UK talking on this. Has much changed with the change in government at the centre and also in the state now, because this is being envisaged as a London-Mumbai partnership, so to say. Of course, this is largely UK and India. Let me just first throw the question to you.
First of all, I must give you some good news, and thanks to Gerry. The name of the partnership is now being made to India-UK partnership, thanks to Gerry wanting it that way. So that's one important change which has happened in terms of the name of this partnership. And as I look at it, this is the beginning of a building of a very significant cross-border platform between India and the UK. There's lots to do. There's lots we can learn from London and the UK in terms of managing the financial sector. They have huge experience over a long period of time. On the other hand, India is the growing market. India is the place where financial intermediation has to flourish. Therefore, as an Indian financial institution representing all the aspirations of many of us in India, we are excited at being able to deepen the Indian financial sector based on the knowledge and the learnings which my UK partners have had over a long period of time, and Gerry being a great symbol of that himself.
We actually welcome you with higher FDI and insurance, and I'm going to talk to you about that in just a moment from now. But like Mr. Kotak is pointing out here, that this is a partnership where India has very crucial lessons to pick from you, given your legacy in financial sector. We are trying to bring about our own reforms as well. How optimistic are you about all of these reforms coming in, given the change of guard here in New Delhi and also in Mumbai, which is again being led by the party that controls power here in the centre?
I'm very positive. Both Uday and I are very practical people, and we wouldn't have wanted to have got involved in this or take on these leadership roles unless we thought we could get something done. And I must say, when we saw Finance Minister Jaitley, that was absolutely what we felt from him as well. He wants to get things done. And it's true that there has been a sense of frustration in recent years about India. Even India's friends, like myself, have wanted to see more happen. But we all now feel that now is the time to move forward and to see what we can do in this area.
Why do you believe there has been this reluctance from the political class as far as that big reform is concerned? It wasn't as if it was something out of the ordinary. I mean, every developing economy has gone through this phase. The developed market has done it. Why did we take so long to think about something as specific as that?
I think one of the important aspects for deepening the corporate bond market in India is deep long-term pools of domestic capital. And in that context, the development of the insurance sector is absolutely crucial to build long-term bond markets. And in that context, I'm also happy to say that when Gerry and I met the finance minister a little while ago, he was very pleased with the developments in the insurance sector, and in many ways deep pools of capital happening domestically, which will be able to put significant money into the corporate bond market. What we are looking forward to learn from the UK is what are the other steps from a point of view of financial markets and platforms we need to create to make efficient markets. And it is here that if you just look at the relative size of the Indian fixed income market, it is significantly smaller than, say, even the Chinese market by a ratio of 1:4. Therefore, we have a long way to go. And one of the ideas which we are thinking about is, does it make sense to look at internationalization of the rupee and floating a rupee bond on the London markets?
I have more questions to ask you of the rupee, and I know the markets always listen to you when you talk about that. But let me just turn focus to you. When we talk about the corporate bond market, the retail participation is minuscule to begin with. What are the lessons that you would share with India as far as deepening that bond market is concerned?
Certainly. The problem we have in India is that too much money is in the banking sector and is in the hands of the state. And more of that money needs to be put to work in the market. And in a country like the UK, that money is put to work through pension companies and through insurance companies. So a large part of the reason why we don't have a corporate bond market in India is not because the companies don't want to raise the money, it's because there aren't their natural purchasers to buy it. And of course that you can't create a corporate bond market just around a retail market.
That's right.
The retail market wants the institutional investors as well. So that we're hoping that some of our work will lead to a much more vibrant institutional market. The changes that are happening in India in insurance and pensions are a very important part of this, but it's putting money to work. And a point that Minister Jaitley was very keen on is putting this money to work for infrastructure investment and putting this money to work for the benefit of India. This money needs to flow in order for the economy to develop even further here.
I will talk to you about the internationalization of the rupee that Mr. Kotak mentioned here, and it's important to talk about that because rupee is a currency that a lot of us lost sleep over till a year back. It seems to have stabilized a little, but given the euphoria that markets have seen and you know the first early signs of recovery that we're witnessing, the rupee still continues to be relentlessly weak. What would you attribute that weakness to? And is that something that makes you nervous when we talk about internationalization of that currency? Because it still hasn't found its feet, so to say. Let me first
I think the rupee is not weak. The dollar is strong.
Okay.
And it's the strong dollar which is making every other currency look weaker, probably with the exception of the British pound, which seems to be holding up pretty well. But if you look at the euro is down to 1.22. And people are talking about euro-dollar parity sometime in 2015. Look at the yen from once upon a time 80 is to 121. Right. Therefore, there is a significant dollar strength which is making most cross currencies look weaker. Therefore, the rupee standalone is not weak. It is the dollar. It is the dollar. And we got to keep this in mind. And I think the big difference between India in 2013 and 2014 end is our current account is widely different from what it was in 2013. We were looking at a current account deficit of around 4.5% to 5%. This year we will be below 2%. And I think a lot of things are going in India's favor and from a macro point of view, and it's a great time for us to be really getting our act together and creating the next generation of reforms.
The RBI is rightly cautious. The RBI will absolutely take this step by step. But at the moment, a lot of rupee offshore sits in grey markets. It's not in a formal marketplace. And I'm sure bit by bit that the RBI will want to get those markets better regulated, more transparent. Look what the Chinese have done. You know, the Chinese are really establishing, they were very cautious too, but the Chinese are really establishing now renminbi as an international currency. Right. They're taking it very slowly, but step by step. But we are now finding in London more and more banks coming to London to raise renminbi. The British government itself issued a renminbi loan. So that's now moving into a semi-maturity phase for a currency. I'm sure eventually...
Do you see beginning of that happen with the rupee as well?
Yes, I'm sure. But again, it should be done cautiously. Governor Rajan will rightly be cautious, but I see this, don't you, moving ahead step by step.
I think we will move ahead step by step, but for that we really need our macro to be sustainably fixed.
India seems to be in the sweet spot because growth is picked up, inflation is down, current account is under control, fiscal deficit, given the spending cuts, we will be able to meet at 4.1%. Are we celebrating too early though?
You know, I would like to believe and hope this time is different. Historically, India has managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
That's right.
This time around, with this new government, which is focused on a medium-term perspective to get India on the right track, I think this is our opportunity to truly fix some of our issues without getting complacent. We are getting a window where the external factors are looking very positive for us.
And they're working in our
we must
favor.
leverage that to really get better on the fundamentals on a sustainable basis.
Do you get a sense that New Delhi is leveraging that well?
I think it's still early days, but I think the intent is clear.
You're talking about the various points in this partnership. One of the things is financial inclusion. How skeptical are you of the Jan Dhan Yojana that the government of India has launched? Because this is actually forcing banks to go out there, open accounts. Shouldn't this be more voluntary instead of targets being set?
India's tremendous in mobile technology. India is leading the world in that. That is one aspect of the partnership where we in the UK feel that we can learn from learn from India. It's very hard to deal with your citizens properly and efficiently unless they're banked. It's a great advantage to a country once it has a proper reference points through IDs and once people are banked. It makes transmission of money so much easier, and I'm sure one of the things the Indian government are doing here is making money flows work more efficiently, and you have to push. These things don't happen automatically. Once you've done them, people are very pleased that you've done it, but it sometimes takes a bit of push to get it over that hurdle.
India is staring at big NPAs. As the economy went through this pain, it's all being reflected on the balance sheets of banks. Are you losing sleep over India's banking space? Could the fault lines be a lot deeper than what they appear to be?
Economic growth is a wonderful antidote to that. The RBI has always been a very cautious regulator. I mean, we as international investors applaud that. But I think economic growth, provided it can be sustained, and at the moment the omens look good, will be the cure for that. And I expect these ratios to progressively improve as the economy strengthens.
Are you as hopeful? Are you as optimistic?
First of all, my view is India is systemically safe. The banking system is not going to crack. Fundamental framework and even the stress is not so deep that it affects it from a system point of view. Yes, is there pressure in the banking system? The answer is yes. And as growth happens, some of this pressure will ease, but banks need to focus on getting their risk-return matrix fixed this time around. And in the past, because 75% of the banking system is owned by the state,
That's right.
the state has funded some of these challenges pretty easily, and therefore the banks in India have taken capital a bit for granted. If banks begin to value capital, I think we'll get the right decisions from the banking system.
Do you believe, because we're just coming out of the woods of 2008, is there risk of over-regulation? Because nobody wants to give up control. I mean, even now, this government, which is so pro-reforms, which has absolute majority in the lower house, is still just talking about 52%, reducing the stake to 52%.
I respect the finance minister for his statement in a different context that it is about the art of the possible.
Possible, yes, he says that.
And therefore, the approach to some of this has to be evolutionary. And let's not try and make it revolutionary. Therefore, I think first let's come down to 52%. Let's see the needs of capital. But frankly, my view is the Indian banking and the financial system needs to be significantly enhancing its capacity. Because if capacity in the financial system does not get developed, the scale of economic growth will be constrained.
I'll talk about using expertise in some more detail in just a while, but because we're at the topic of reforms and like I said, we welcome you with higher FDI and insurance, the select panel seems to have accepted the recommendations. 49% insurance in India will perhaps be reality with the bill being tabled in Parliament. How excited are you? And were you nervous along the way that one government proposes 49%, goes out of office and then begins to oppose that very initiative to begin with?
I will be very excited the day it happens.
You're still skeptical that it may?
I'm not skeptical, I'm superstitious. And I think that in the way that one shouldn't walk under a ladder. I'm sure it will be done. I know the government wants to do it, but we've been waiting for this for a long time. I think we now at long last see chance for progress. I think the bill is in good shape. It was never the case that the international insurance companies wanted to control these businesses.
Right.
As far as we're concerned, we're perfectly happy that HDFC have 51% of our business. Perfectly happy about that. But that's a different thing from running the business, from providing capital to it. So I think we've reached a good compromise. From what I hear, it's in a good position, but what I'm really going to be excited about, and the day I will open the champagne or the Diet Coke, will be the day that it's passed.
Fair point indeed. What about you? 49% FDI and insurance, and everybody in India seems to presume that here are the big $1 billion that are going to come in because we've opened it to 49%. A bit of a presumptuous stance there.
One of the interesting points which the finance minister Jaitley made when we met him today was that we are, as India, taking our steps to effectively reform and open up, we really want to see the global community, including the UK, step up and come in with serious commitment of investments into India. And I'm sure one of the ways, especially I think India is going to look at this Indo-UK partnership is, Gerry, where are the bucks?
Yes.
And because he posed that question to you, let me ask you, you're an investor of the HDFC here with a 49%. Let's presume, and let's keep our fingers crossed with all your superstition at bay, this is going to go through because the select committee has now given it. I foresee no opposition, but of course that's political rhetoric, may well happen. But when this does go through, will Standard Life be looking to increase its stake? Will you look at listing at some stage? How does the FDI, FII component work for you?
I mean, certainly we're going to look at listing, and I'll certainly be sitting down with my great partner and friend, Mr. Deepak Parekh, to talk about this. Both he and I want our company to have an IPO. We want the Indian public to be able to share in the prosperity that we are creating. The insurance sector should be a dynamic new sector for the Indian market. For example, one of the things we're looking at in our project is joint listings between Mumbai and London.
That's right.
At the moment, companies are choosing between whether to go to London or whether to go to Mumbai. Let's cut through something like that and allow companies to list simultaneously in both jurisdictions. But both Deepak and I want our company to be up there in the forefront of all of this. And as soon as this goes through, we want to move forward.
When you say you want to move forward, how soon do we expect an IPO, and when do we see you increasing your stake?
These things always take some months to prepare. You have to prepare the prospectus. You have to sit down and work out the details, but we will be pushing on. Have no doubt at all, the moment that bill is passed, Mr. Parekh and I will be sitting down to work out how to push this forward as fast as we possibly can.
All right, he's going to have his hands full, but how optimistic are you that other players around the world, be it the US insurance giants or even the other ones in UK, will come calling to India? Because look at the amount of teething trouble this had to go through.
I think the good news about India is once there is a law in place, it works. And India's commitment on law in general has been excellent. So I am not worried about that. The key issue is what is it that the insurance approval does? Of course, hopefully it will bring in foreign investment into capital of insurance companies.
That's right.
But more importantly, it's a signal to the world that India is moving forward. It's ready to take steps to encourage investment both domestically and globally.
Are you a little nervous with how hot the Indian markets are? Are they too hot to handle, you think?
Well, markets always look forward rather than look back. But you always have to take a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year view of markets. Markets like going up and down, but it's the trend that matters. And I think the trend is positive. And India's getting some, benefits. Oil prices coming down. Who would have projected that oil prices would now be where they are? Huge benefit to India. So it may just be, and this sometimes happens in life, a number of factors are working together here. So I'm bullish about the Indian stock market.
You've been a bull ever since this government came to power, and you believe that reforms will go forward. You're not losing any sleep on how the markets are racing ahead sometimes of reality?
See, the fact of the matter on the ground today is the expectations of the market, or the markets as they are today, are ahead of the real economy.
That's right.
Now, as I see it, two things can happen. The real economy moves ahead because of some real reform on the ground, and markets can refinance a lot of leverage companies in India to get ahead. So both these can happen. However, as I said, let's not take it for granted. When we are getting an opportunity to really get our act together with a benign external environment from a macro point of view for India, this is our time to really get our act together on productivity, efficiency, and fixing a whole host of issues on investment.
It always surprises my Indian friends when I remind them that the UK is the #1 investor in India, more than the US, more than Japan. The UK, over the last 10 years, has been consistently the #1 investor. So we have as much interest in India succeeding as India
itself.
does. And what we're hoping to do through our partnership is to support Make in India, and we want to support that Make in India by financing in London,
That's right.
training in the UK, but making in India. And if Uday and I can do that together, then we will have achieved something.
You know, Make in India is a great concept, and everybody lauds that, because every economy which has now developed has gone through a phase of very good manufacturing. The contra question to that, and this is, you know, a discussion we were having some time back, and the contra question to that is, we are we do very well in our services. Why not push that further? Why time services at the cost of manufacturing?
I have a line for this. Learn from London, make and serve in India.
Oh, that's a nice one. Is that the catch line of your partnership?
I agree.
The question is that people still wonder if much has changed on the ground. You travel to India 6 times a year, and I'm sure you've come in more frequently ever since the new government has been sworn in. Has reality on the ground really, does reality on the ground reflect with what the sentiment is?
I was finding increasing frustration about the bottlenecks in the system. You know, India is one of the most entrepreneurial countries in the world. Indian entrepreneurs are superb. Who'd have thought that in my lifetime, India would become the largest investor in the UK? But I do now detect that these bottlenecks are being removed. And the problem in the Indian system hasn't been one big thing or 2 big things. It's been a million small things that need to be fixed. And I do sense now in the bureaucracy, in the departments, that things are getting done. We learnt when Margaret Thatcher did the economic reforms in the UK in the 1980s. I was in charge of privatisation and divestment for Margaret Thatcher at that time. And to get progress, it was lots of small things you had to get right. You need energy, you need vision, and you have to have a sense of wanting to move forward. Without being starry-eyed, I kind of feel that is what's going on in India now, and that is what, of course, the markets are reacting to.
And this is also a reason they say that, you know, the micros have to add up to be to making up the good macro. Before we quickly end this, let's quickly talk about growth, because we are a very growth-obsessed nation. We talk growth to the last decimal point. We've done 5.3% for the second quarter, 5.7% for the first. Will we be too presumptuous to believe we can end anywhere between 5.7 and 5.9? Could things change dramatically in the second half?
I think the October, November, December quarter is not been easy because of late rains, and the October numbers have been a little subdued.
That's right, yes.
Therefore, my base case is still 5.5% for this year. But I see growth steadily picking up, and I compare the India this time to be more like a marathon and less like a sprint.
I'm not going to put you in the spot that we put you each time. When will RBI cut rates? Do we need a rate cut? Let me ask you a very point-blank question. What does the industry want today? And I'm asking you to wear your banker's hat. I'm also asking you to wear your industrialist hat. Do you want a rate cut or do you want reforms?
I think we need, we at times overemphasize the importance of 0.5% or 1% interest rate cuts. What we really need to focus on is fixing issues which are acting as bottlenecks for investment, which is getting all your approvals, speedy clearances, center state issues, and making sure investment is a priority. 100 basis points movement in interest rates on the base is alone not going to really drive investment. People need to have confidence that if they put their money in projects, money won't get stuck.
That's right.
And we have...
And they'll be able to make return on investment sooner than later.
Exactly, and we need to have a perception that the government of the day and the system will support investing as distinct from crony capitalism.
But is that a price? And this is another lesson that, you know, India would want to learn from the developed market, and this is just out of the blue. But is corruption a price that economies around the world will pay for high growth? I mean, look at what happened in India, 2008, 2009, 2010, we were growing phenomenally, but that's also the time our economy was saddled with multi-billion-dollar, scams.
Corruption is insidious. Once you start thinking corruption, you become corrupt, and it then becomes endemic in a system. The best way to deal with it is transparency and good corporate governance. I'm a huge supporter of this. Boards have to feel the responsibility for their companies. People have to feel responsible for their personal behaviour, and people should never do anything in private which they're not prepared to see quoted in public. And that's a very simple message. I'm not saying for India, but for everybody, that is how one should conduct one's business. And it's always been the way that Uday and ourselves have conducted our businesses.
Absolutely. And thanks very much, both of you, for talking to us.
Thank you very much.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.